Yo, how you doing, folks? Welcome to episode zero point 0.5 of the Simpa Life podcast with me, your host, Simpa, my technological wizard and friend, Mr. Maca over here.
Hello.
How are you doing, brother?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. What the fuck are we doing?
Well, we've sat down this evening for, I think, the third time to attempt to
Yeah.
record the first episode of this project that we've been quietly working on for the majority of 2020, the Simpa Life, which is the centralization of a lot of my previous work and hopefully the future base for all of future work, really.
Right. So this is different than your previous streaming that you've been doing on social media.
It is indeed. Obviously, I would like to think that quite a lot of the audience that are watching and listening to this right now are people that have transitioned over from other platforms that I've produced content for over the years, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, etc. Um,
Right.
but yeah, the format is slightly different. It's not going to be me talking to a camera of lives. It's going to be each week myself and you
Me.
interviewing interviewing various guests and people from all kinds of walks of life and backgrounds
Yeah.
to really connect the dots between a lot of the conversations that I've been having for many years anyway, inside and outside of different sort of communities.
Grand. And just to before people start freaking out, this isn't the sole thing that you're going to be doing. You're obviously going to be still doing your lives as well, the chill out and stuff. This is just going to be a small bit more information driven, conversational driven, ideas driven. Yeah.
Exactly. This is going to be a bit more of structured content.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've been working on the website, which hopefully by the time people are listening to this will be fully functional and usable. It will
Fingers
be a
crossed.
centralized, fingers crossed, touch wood. That'll be a centralized place for a lot of the previous blogs and articles that I've written, as well as the location where I'll be first releasing all of the new weekly blogs that we'll be producing a lot of the other content. There still will obviously be the occasional medicated Monday and Wellness Wednesday that people
Right.
have come to know me for. We'll be
Relief.
obviously
Chill.
we'll be launching a YouTube channel as well at the Simpa Life to incorporate a lot of the purely cannabis driven content. There will still be consumption within this podcast. There will still obviously be conversations around cannabis reform and other drugs, prohibition, and sort of the consequences of this on the wider society.
Nice one, grand. So, the types of guests then would obviously, to be a bit more specific, who would you be looking to have on here to talk to the two of or two of us?
Well, it's I've been fortunate enough to do quite a lot within this community, the cannabis community in the UK already, that has given me a great deal of connection and a great deal of connection with many people around the world in a multitude of different communities that are activists and advocates for various causes. So it'll be sort of these kind of individuals, but anybody really ultimately that has a story to tell, somebody that can help bring another piece towards this puzzle, be it musicians, artists, teachers,
Mm.
spiritualists and religious leaders, anybody that's actually got sort of real world, real life experience,
Yeah,
bringing these people together to, like we said, to weave together their stories into a tapestry of our times, if you
yeah.
will.
To highlight the interconnection between it, and I did say this before we started the show, but what was it? Interstices, interweaving interstices. That's from Terence McKenna, and it might be something that I made up while listening to Terence McKenna, because if you ever listen to him, he's he can go off on a very very long-winded and aesthetically pleasing diatribe like this is, but more pleasing. and
Are you talking about me or Terence McKenna here?
oh, Bud, you basically you're the modern day version of Terence McKenna. That's a good summary.
That's oof.
Uh,
That's too much of a compliment, my friend.
no, but
Appreciate it nevertheless.
all right, but basically what he was hinting at was the interconnections of every walk of life and how it sort of becomes this accumulated experience for everybody. Accumulative or shared or whatever the nice word for shared is. So let's talk about some sort of topics then in terms of what type of guests that you would have on. So teaching, I'd assume, police. What else?
Well, sort of doctors, politicians, anybody from any walk of life or profession that has shown some sort of atypical behavior within their field,
Yeah.
or something that deviates from the norm of the accepted within that, to allow these alternative conversations. Obviously, the whole ethos of the Simpa Life is to inform, to educate, and to entertain through the curation and creation and curation of alternative thought-provoking conversations and content. So ultimately, that is providing a platform for people to have these conversations, to voice their truth, and to show the audience that these people exist, and there is a much wider world than the bubbles, the social bubbles that we are locked in, be it because of algorithms or simply social structure.
Yeah, nice. All right, so it sounds exciting, doesn't it? So
It does indeed.
it does. It does. It should be pretty good. I think it'd be quite nice to have a deeply informed level of guest. No, didn't fuck that up completely. A oh god above. No, I don't know what I was talking about. Come in and rescue me with your lovely words.
By the sounds of it, it felt very much like, yeah, you're saying we need informed guests, and I think it's not
Yes.
just people who are informed.
I can't
If we're
even
going to
say
be
that.
if we're going to be producing sort of these long-winded podcasts, obviously, as you can tell by the cut of this, guys, we're deliberately showing this as it's rough.
Yeah.
We want you to come on this journey of discovery with us. So the people that we will be sort of providing a platform for and trying to have these conversations with will be knowledgeable individuals, yes, first and foremost, but there will also be sort of the charismatic individuals, the characters throughout history who inspire change. Like I said, this is why I want to have musicians and artists, creators and lovers, people that are trying to change the world through, not, I don't say the weirdest of means. What do I mean by that? Through
Not the
through
simplest of
providing
means.
and through providing something to life that they don't purely want to make a living from. They're not trying to create something to then gain back something. They're trying to create something to say something. And I think these are the voices that, especially in this year, people need to hear from.
Yeah, so basically, not a capitalist approach.
There'll be the odd capitalist, there'll be the odd socialist. This is the point
No,
of it.
bring him on, bring him on, bring him on. That's what I'm saying. I'm just like, we're kind of trying to highlight that. I mean, it'd be very interesting to have fucking hell, I'm right dead close to the mic. It'd be very interesting to have somebody controversial as well, if we can handle it. If they have, the scruples to come on and talk to us, I guess.
Well, I think given the very nature of a lot of the work that I've already done, to most people it's controversial.
Yeah.
To you or I, it isn't. It's common sense. It is based on research. It's based on decades of lived experience on my end, and yourself included. It's a different kind of argument.
Right.
But ultimately, we are still deemed controversial by the masses. This podcast and the various subsequent media and content that we will create will be deprioritized by algorithms because of the nature of the content. So most of the conversations we will be having will be controversial. And obviously, like I said, it's perception. So ultimately, we may have a guest that we think is very mainstream and very acceptable, but some people may seem fringe and controversial.
Yeah. I guess what I meant was not controversial, conflicting. I guess I meant as well. It could be both. It could be somebody that is conflicting to our ideals and our sort of what we want to perpetuate into the society around us, thought-wise, or they could be completely opposite to us as well, because that could be cool. It'd be interesting to see how relaxed and how we hold together, kind of a thing. Maybe not the first few guests. We maybe warm up a bit, because I have a tendency to sort of lose my train of thought, as you've seen there just a second ago, and that isn't the first time that Simpa has swooped in with his lovely words and saved me.
Shan't be the last.
It probably won't. So,
but yeah, I mean, ultimately, yeah, it's about inclusivity and diversity. So obviously, very aware that we're both quite white. We're quite colonial, for lack of a better wording, if you know what I mean, given our heritage. So it's about providing a space for the marginalized voices. There's more than enough places for people to hear middle-class white people discuss cannabis and drug reform within this world, but there is very little place where there is debate and discussion amongst the diverse people that make up those industries or those institutions or collectives or societies or social groups.
Or are
So
adversely affected by it as well, you know?
exactly that. So I think ultimately we have an ambitious list of guests that we're looking for. Some of them are a lot more achievable than others simply through previous connections and through the work that I've already done within the cannabis and drug reform industry and movement within the UK. Some of them will obviously take time for us to build a platform before they would even take serious our request for them to appear as a guest.
Yeah.
And the pair of us are both quite realistic on that. Ultimately, this isn't for any of those listening. This isn't an attempt to cash grab. This isn't an attempt for us to cash in. This is an attempt for us to create something sustainable, something meaningful, where it can actually build momentum over time. So that the back catalogue of content that is created and curated on the Simpa Life is the answers to the questions that we're all asking, but isn't addressed by seemingly any other form of alternate or mainstream media.
Yeah, no smoke and mirrors here. Being genuine.
Where the
Absolutely.
smoke, but no mirrors.
Yeah, should have. Fucking hell. You're sharp today, aren't you? So I guess that begs the question then, why are we doing this? Right? For people, and this is a question obviously for newer people that come to the show. So it's over to yourself there, buddy.
Oh, cheers for dropping me in the deep end there, bud. I suppose it's quite well documented, I suppose, in a lot of my previous work, a lot of my lives. I do speak of what motivated me to be sort of an advocate and an open activist about cannabis and drug reform in the UK. But ultimately, I suppose it comes down to freedom, to sovereignty of consciousness, to the idea that if I can't control how I think and what I think and the substances that I choose to put into my body,
Yeah.
then I am not free. I because of my, I suppose, white privilege, because of the area I live in, because of my vocabulary and my um, self-educated nature and my knowledge, means that I can challenge authorities to a point where I can get away with what I get away with. I've spoken on the BBC and done interviews with various other platforms speaking of this, whereas if I was in a different position of ethnicity or social class or position, I wouldn't have that platform. So I feel kind of obligated to speak out against this. I've spent
Yeah.
the past 4 or 5 years really trying to build various platforms and pursuits and projects that some have come to fruition and some haven't.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel this is the culmination of that.
Yeah.
So
To some,
I'm here
to summarize, it would be your experience, your given experience in this, right, and all the positives that you've seen and you've collected along the way. You want that accessible to everybody, every single fucking person, right? Is that true?
yeah,
And that just
100%.
completely robs half of what I was gonna say. But it's along the same.
Apologies.
No, I'm only joking. I'm only joking. But like in all seriousness, right? But that's actually what it's all about, right? We need to have a healthy society. We need to have, in terms of functionality, in terms of self-sufficiency. That's what we need to have. You need, like, if there's somebody around you that's struggling, I don't know about you, but I get affected by it. If there's somebody on my street or you know what I mean, they can't feed themselves or anything like that, then you know what I mean. I want to be able to help that. It's an emphatic way of
You may be emphatic about being empathic.
yeah. Hey. Right. But just to continue on with that, that's what it is for me. It is, I want, as I grow older, because obviously one of my biggest fears is decay, is death, but not the actual, like, the switches off death. I'm not afraid of that. It's the degradation. Do you know what I mean? I want, and it's quite specifically, you know, not a lot of people would be aware about the medical side of things, and that's just one aspect of it. That's one thing that adds up to this summation of what we're trying to actually describe, right? But just to use that as an example, I don't want to be 70 or 80 and either have to be a criminal and grow my own substances or plants or whatever to aid my health so I can actually die with fucking dignity. Do you know that kind of way? I don't want that. I don't want that for me. I don't want it for anybody that's close to me. I don't want it for anybody at all. I really, really don't. And that sort of translates across to things like, offering farmers, giving them an opportunity for increased biodiversity, for a new form of textiles, for biodegradable plastics to come into play, so we can address the climate issue, so we can be reinforced nutritionally, so that, you know what I mean, we can take the weight off of the NHS financially, or the HSE in Ireland. Do you know what I mean? By combining all of these things together in such a way, like, we can actually sort this shit out ourselves, and we won't have to have any sort of political, we don't have to be so deep down the rabbit hole politically in terms of categorical separation. Do you know what I mean? Left, right, fucking this, that, the other. Do you know what I mean? We can actually step the fuck up and do this if we make a decision to do it. But I mean, in order to encourage people to make it, to have the mindset to make those decisions, these sort of interweaving conversations need to be had. And that's why I'm here talking to you. Another long-winded ball of shite. But I think you get the gist.
So this is the point of the 0.5 episode, though. It's people need an introduction to yourself. People obviously are listening to this or watching this, high visual people, that have never really seen anything that I've done before and never come across content like this before. Obviously, podcasts are really sort of in rage. Yeah, they're really enraged at the minute, right? So there's podcasts for everything. As you've said, there's nobody has really tried, I think, in the UK especially, to combine these voices together to allow, to create a platform to allow people to speak openly and honestly about a multitude of subjects, to avoid simply being stuck within their field or within their defined social group. This is exactly what I've always sought to do with my work previously, is to show that everything affects everything else. Everything is so interwoven. So sitting there with a farmer talking about biodiversity is the same argument as then legalizing LSD on the other side of the world. It's all so interwoven. And so the importance of creating these conversations now more than ever, I think, is vital to.
Yeah, and you're right. It is, and it is because we have this habit of. And we're aided, obviously, by these social algorithms that you've been talking about previously, that sort of tunnel the content and make it like dead specific for you, so that you're just constantly engaged, right? I mean, that's the model that's being used. That's the weaponization of social media, and I find it interesting to fucking hell, lost me train of thought. Where was I going with that? What were you just talking about? I do this a lot, by the way. I put him on the spot as well. I remember. I was a lot quicker this time. In the practice ones, I was fucking like 2 or 3 minutes, fucking dead headspace. But yeah, fucking, I lost it again. Oh my god, I can't believe it.
And I'm the one consuming cannabis here, folks.
No, I'm joking. I didn't lose it again. We have this habit that's aided by social media of staying in our lane, staying boxed off, and only sort of finding the time to only listen to what we want to hear, in a sense. Do you know what I mean? Because there's so much pressure on us environmentally, and not just like from a climate perspective, but I mean in your immediate environment around you, from every avenue. You're just being constantly fucking attacked, and you're tired. By the time you want to get to something that you know what I mean, that you're interested in, you kind of want it to be relevant. Because it's easier, and then you're tired because, do you know what I mean? Everybody's fucking tired because we have this obligation, you know what I mean? This needless obligation to be part of this financially broken system. Do you know what I mean? You have to do all of these things. You have to experience your life like this. It's fucking tiring. It really is. And you know what I mean? By the end of the day, you pick up this thing, and you know you want to see what your mates are doing. Maybe you see what your mates are doing, if you're on Twitter or whatever, if you're following anything political, you just see other people retweeting things that they agree with an awful lot of the time. So you have to have this sort of conscious want in the midst of all of this tiredness to actually go, right, I wonder what's actually happening over here. Do you know what I mean? You need to seek out that sort of contradictory angle to whatever your ideals might be, I guess.
Well, it's just stepping out of the limitation of, I suppose, what I would say is the prism of perception. So all of this information comes in, you take in all of this from the wide world. It comes in through the limitation of your perception of reality, which is a mix of, I suppose, your personality, which is a consequence of environmental factors, genetics, and a few other things. It's so you can see how they've sort of weaponized that against us, but it's like if we consider these kind of conversations, if we consider people seeking alternative answers outside of the box, taking psychedelic substances, taking drugs, and breaking social taboos and these structures, that is them trying to widen their sphere of their prism, of influence, their external perception. They want to widen that, and the way you do that best is by taking in new information and new data. So ultimately, that is what we seek to do with the diversity of guests that we bring on with this. I don't want to create an echo chamber of my thoughts at all. I'm here to interview the guests. You're here to help with that process, and obviously to make sure that technologically this all works. You can't see it at the minute, guys, but we do have a system to put up graphics and whatnot that we're working on. Like I said, we wanted to invite you along with this, to watch the progression, to follow the evolution of this technologically, and to hopefully see us evolve into something, like I said, that is financially viable and sustainable, but is also interesting enough to our audience, and that is a welcoming environment to guests, so that people don't feel ostracized or alienated for potentially participating in recording one of these podcasts.
Yeah, it's a really, really good way of saying it. Really is. I was actually getting relaxed into the whole, like, oh yeah, I used to watch this stuff all the time, and then I forgot that I was on camera. I was like sinking into the chair a bit. No, you have definitely a way with words, and it's gonna be really exciting, I think. Do you know what I mean?
If nothing else,
it's potential.
It's gonna be fun, as we've said. We neither of us have the greatest of expectations from this. We've obviously committed a lot of man hours to it because it's a passion project. We believe in it, and we want to have these conversations ourselves. If we didn't have the technology, but we could agree to it, I'd love to get some of our. If we weren't doing this, I mean, to have those guests, to literally 2 or 3 people in a room and have a chat with them. It'd be amazing. Amazing. So the fact that we can actually do that and invite others into that, is amazing. So I suppose we should quickly talk about formatting to some point to some people as to what this is going to sort of look like.
Good.
So we're going to be recording this, as you see, video wise. We'll be conjiggering sort of what it looks like on screen once guests come on and once we play with sort of graphics, as Mr. Wizard over here will be figuring out over the coming days, weeks, and months. We're going to be putting out the video on Facebook, on YouTube. We'll be doing a live as well. So some shows will be live, some will be pre-recorded by the nature of the guests, with the time zones they're in, and with the restraints of, I suppose, the technology. So that's my phone going off. I'll just silence that. We'll get smart at this. I will remember to mute it for future episodes. But yeah, so what we're going to be doing, like I said, some will be live, some will be pre-recorded. We'll be correlating all of the content basically to the Simpa Life website once we launch that again, and hopefully by the time most of you are listening to this or watching this. But yeah, we're full of ambition. We're committed. So yeah, so let's see what we can do, and if nothing else, we're gonna have fun along the way, folks.
Yeah, and there'll be occasional like trivial crack, which I'll probably fare better at talking. I probably won't. Daily struggle to just even speak. This is what happens when you think too much. But seriously, I think Alan Watts said that, right? When you think too much, you end up not speaking.
Well, yeah, I think it is. You have a capacity for one or the other, and it's a skill, isn't it? The more you think the more you think about speaking, the more you want to say less, because you feel that there's less that you can articulate.
Yeah, but I feel there's a speed discrepancy between my mental processing and my verbal like enunciation or something like that. It's just like something is ahead of something else. You know that kind of way. Um,
Not feel you
yeah,
there.
it is what it is. I don't give a flying fuck. But like, what I was gonna say is like, we can talk about things that are relevant as well. Like, you were watching. What were you watching recently?
Oh, I did start that Brave New World actually
Brave
that
New
we were
World. Yeah, that's
discussing
what we're
the
gonna
other
talk
night.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've just watched episode 4. Um, I read the book twice,
Yeah.
so I read the revised edition as well at some point, somewhere in the back of my mind. There's a few sort of modifications to the episodes that I've seen so far. The adaptation of the sort of, it was written I think 1934, around that sort of region. So Huxley was obviously well ahead of his time anyway. In terms of his vision of social degradation of the constructs, and the world in which it creates is incredibly interesting, to be honest with you. So the 3 rules of New London of the future place in which most of the events take place of Brave New World. The 3 rules is no family. What is it? No family, no monogamy, and no. I can't remember what the third thing is. Off the top of my head, sorry. But basically, it just shows that what would happen if you flip the structures of society or you remove them entirely. You know what I mean? And so the consequences of this is it shows that people, or it posits the idea that potentially people would seek to ultimately would seek to ultimately go to these structures. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the argument is being made, I suppose, in modern philosophy, or the argument is between whether the social structures we live under are an apparatus of our own design to imprison us, is it some sort of classist structure, or is it some natural structure that arises from nature? And obviously, there are many fields of study that have counter arguments and information
Well,
studies on both sides. It's
here's
very
the
hard
thing.
to discern what the
It's
truth
just
would
going to
be.
end up being a blend, isn't it, of all the ideas and some sort of you're going to have something like what was it? What's the it's not a concept. It's an idea that if you had a million monkeys writing.
A million monkeys and a million typewriters would
Yeah,
eventually produce the works of Shakespeare.
yeah, exactly. So our actual existence is probably going to be some sort of amalgamated version of Orwell and Huxley and a shitload of
Frank
sci-fi
Gray.
stuff maybe as well. Blade Runner maybe chuck that in there as well. But
I mean, if you look at the times when a lot of the great dystopian novels were written and what was going on in their culture and times, you can see why they thought of what they did of the future. It's quite interesting
yeah,
that there aren't many great literaries or thinkers of our current day who are projecting a future because they're all so busy dealing with the frankly dystopian nature of our current reality.
yeah. Now is that now interesting, right? So here's the thought. I think I thought about this as well, but in a slightly different way. So because of social media and the internet and stuff like that, right? In terms of content, it's so dense now. There's so many people, and I'm dead close to the mic, and I'm essing all over the place. There's so many people that are doing, creative stuff, that are writing. An awful lot of people that I see on Twitter are musicians, like they've written novels or anything like this. But there's so many people. There's so much accessibility, and now to sort of attaining that level of finish. You know what I mean? Be it like a polished song. You can definitely do them in your bedroom and you can get them played on the radio. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot different than what it was back then.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if we actually do have like these really talented, futuristic, creative, sci-fi esque predictions in our media now, but it's lost in the capitalized, the density, the mist that is like
Yeah.
everybody's effort. That kind of way.
Yeah. So there's an interesting sort of French thinker Jean Baudrillard, and he spoke of he was the guy who wrote Simulation and Simulacra, and sort of how society that becomes self-referential until the point of things then lose the meaning of the things.
Yeah.
And then he spoke of a concept. What do you call it? It was sort of pacification or fatigue through oversaturation, which is, I think, something that's happening at the minute. There's almost, it's like, it's exactly what happens when you sit in front of Netflix and you scroll for hours and go, there's nothing to watch
Yeah. Oh
because you're
Jesus.
paralyzed by choice. So there's a very interesting study Tesco did a few years ago, Tesco supermarkets in the UK. So they, I don't know who it was that they commissioned, but they got them in to look at the structure of the aisles and the number of products. And ultimately, what they found is above a certain amount of product numbers, people stopped buying the product. So the more diversity you gave of a product, the less likely people were to buy it because they were paralyzed by choice. So they would then look at this spectrum of products and be like, the 6 or 7 mustards, I just wanted mustard. What the fuck?
Yeah.
So then the people on an economic budget will go for the cheapest. The more affluent or the more money you have that's then free money, the more of an option you have. So therefore, the more of an option, the harder it is to actually then be satisfied by any one thing. Because if you get by the middle one, you go home and go, it's nice, but
Yeah.
I could have got the other one might have been better. What if I've got the most expensive one? And it's, do you know what I mean? So what
No,
they
I
did
do.
is ultimately they reduced their numbers massively by the number of products that they sold, and they kept it down to their basically a budget and an average and an expensive. So that's the standard model now for supermarkets. They produce their own 3 spectrum products, and
That's
basically they're
like
all the same.
yeah.
All they do is the marketing budget is different, so that's what changes the cost. Well, it's not even a case of what changes the cost. The cost is the illusion of the value, which is again what Bodrack spoke of. Is the value is defined by its value in relation to something else.
Yeah.
Nothing has value in nature to itself.
Well, of course, because it's a fucking concept. You know what I mean? Again, I mentioned this again one of the practice runs, but I'm rewatching The Wire, and I find that like that's nearly like 20 years old. I think it was like 2003 or something. It's like my fifth or sixth time watching it, but it's very relevant. Like, you know what I mean? I mean, there's an awful lot of differences in terms of fashion and technological advancements and whatnot, but the approach to the war on drugs, the like the ever is it's like the want of satisfying quotas for the police and the mayor and all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? And an awful lot of it hasn't changed. It's just become sort of condensed into something that is like increasingly effective and it works. And I guess you could say that that's some sort of capitalized model, and that's where we are. But
Well, it's ultimately a for-profit model. If you look at
yeah,
the war on drugs makes a goddamn serious amount of money. So in America, where you have like forfeiture of assets, you find a 20 bag of weed in the house, you can seize their house because that's proceeds of crime.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? So it's these police forces that then go around that. You get a sheriff that's voted in that then becomes seriously anti-drugs. Obviously, we're a bit more protected here in the UK, but it's still ideologically driven. And then when the consequences of prohibition become more apparent in society, they double down because
yeah.
they can't accept the truth. They've become so indoctrinated in their own lies and propaganda around currently prohibited substances that they believe the bullshit. They believe this.
I believe in bullshit, even like subliminal, unsaid bullshit, right? So going back to what you were saying about the different tiers of expense and the same fucking product, just different marketing strategy, right? And connecting in, the wire. It was like, there was a query in I think one of the characters was in an economics class, right? And he was asking, it's like, what happens if you have an inferior product? And they were talking about drugs, like in the bad way possible, like cutting fucking cocaine with like rat poison and shit like that. But this dude was like, I'm not trying to give much away because you should watch it if you haven't, but the question to the tutor was like, what happens if you have an inferior product? He's like, you have an option. You rebrand, and it's exactly the same fucking thing, or you drop your prices to compete with the market. But if you drop your prices too low, you get this like subliminal concept that your product is inferior because it's too
Yeah,
cheap.
you exactly. You price yourself down.
Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So you have this like I used to be like that when I used to go shopping. And pick up that mustard. I didn't even fucking like mustard, and I'm just going off of your example, right? But it's like I'd pick up the 30p mustard, and I'd go, oh, do you know what? It's probably all of this would be whirring in my head. I'd be going, maybe like the hygiene standard isn't up to par. Nobody's fucking said this to me. Nobody's implied this. I don't know anything about this company. Do you know that kind of way? But
but
that's
it's
there.
the nature of the hierarchy existing. It presents that. This is why, yeah, most people go for the middle meal.
Yeah.
Most people will always go for that goddamn middle
Oh,
meal.
that's it.
But it's the same that's true with drugs. So I've obviously known a lot of dealers over the years. I've bought a hell of a lot of substances from various places, well, frankly, around the world at this point. And again, it's the same thing as present. The economics, the structure, the financial structuring of drug dealing, it's the same as any business. It is capitalism. So actually, the consequences of why we're seeing drugs ever more present in society is a measure to how good drugs seem to be for people, in terms of the vast majority of people that take them do so non-problematically. The World Health Organization's own statistics show this on every substance across the board in every territory and region. It's not what it is painted to be in shows like The Wire. That shows the consequences of prohibition. It doesn't show the consequences of sensible consumption, educated, informed decisions that are made when people take regulated substances. As you were talking before about hygiene and whatnot,
Yeah.
the very nature of a product being sold in a supermarket means it has to meet minimum. If it meets minimum, it's safe for you. So again, it's the illusion that is created by the hierarchical pricing. This is exactly what's happening with fake imported Cali weed in the UK. The packaging and the branding changes the pricing. But then if it gets to too high, people question it. Or if it's too low, people question it.
Yeah. Or if it's if it's a knockoff of the thing, which is perpetuated even by just suggestion that it'll make you ill, even though if it's like a legitimate product, you know, that kind of way. It's like a minefield of mind games that John Lennon's on.
Well,
Playing
well,
those mind games.
well, you've got to remember, ultimately, the modern marketing and advertising industry, as it stands today, was created by is it Edmund Hayes, Freud's like second cousin,
Right.
and they had a campaign. The first major campaign was on bacon, pig belly. Nobody ate pig belly because of its fat content. It was just a ubiquitously unaccepted meat for most societies. Then this advertising campaign came around that no breakfast is complete without bacon, and they used psychology, and they used the things that we were learning.
It fucking worked.
Um, and yeah, we now look at where we are. They pick the colors because of the moods that they feel. Brands these days don't sell products; they sell feelings.
All right.
I mean,
So right.
we most people, frankly, have been so hollowed out by the modern experience in the 21st century that they can only identify with the brands. So they wear these brands because, oh well, the advert and the ethos of the company, even if it's someone like Nike. So Nike promotes this like sport and health and whatever.
Yeah.
They're still using kids in sweatshops on the other end of the world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's the appearance for a company is far more important than its product and its service or what it actually does. And I think that rings true with most of culture these days,
Yeah.
which, to circle all the way back around, I think is why it is so important for us to try and create this platform to have the kind of conversation around this sort of stuff, just to re-grease those wheels. The knowledge is out there. We have already between us as a global society all of the answers. As you alluded to before, what if these great thinkers, all of these great individuals are there, but they're hidden because of the saturation? Well, then we need to find a way, as McKenna said, to find the others. And then once we've found each other, we need to figure out what the fuck to do.
That's it. Yeah. That's it. Hold the fuck on, especially at our age. Like, you know what I mean? It's fucking hard to make friends at our age. Everybody's so fucking caught up in their own shit, their own. They become a parody of themselves, you know, that kind of way. And that's what I'm trying to resist the whole way through. But if you find people that are in the avenue of what you've just described, hold tight, gently, you know, like amicably, but fucking tight.
Probably
you're not going
social
anywhere
distance at this point.
I admit, genuinely, right? This sounds happy as fuck, but I miss hugging.
No,
People.
I think you and majority of fucking people, myself included, man, having that physical closeness, having, again, it's one of the basic human things. It is one of the cornerstones of humanity is touch.
Yeah.
If you don't touch a child when it's first born, it will die. There's something more about us with each other. We charge each other. There's a what's it, the heart map study discovered that human hearts resonate a frequency that becomes reciprocal to others. When you spend time with another person, your heartbeats start to beat together. They resonate.
Is it
It's
the
the same
same from?
mechanism that happens with menopause.
I was
Not
going. I
menopause.
was just about to say the menstrual cycle.
Menstrual cycle. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I had that confirmed. Like that. I thought that was a pishog, a sort of a myth. You know, that kind of way. And it was like, do you know, that's what people are saying for some sort of solidarity or camaraderie or whatever, and that would be my dismissive male fucking, you know, undermining mental process at that time. And then I was like, that's a completely legit thing, 100% legit thing. If that's not proof that we are social human beings and we're designed to be, you know, we're
Yeah.
supposed. Go
On the
ahead.
very physical fact that on the physical level we reciprocate to each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you look at when you, regardless of class, regardless of creed or background, you put people in severe danger. You put them in a point of near death, and you give them a tiny bit of food, they all eat. Do you know what I'm saying? If there's a chance they can all survive, they will die trying to save each other. There is something innate in us that beyond the gameplay, beyond the facade and the capitalist matrix, is it were, the infrastructure that's built around our lives that we're forced to play in,
Yeah.
with the social progression ladder, with the 2.5 nuclear family, with all of these models we're supposed to fall in line to. This distracts us and detracts from what it is to be human. And what it is to be human is to try and grab another person and go, do you fucking see this? Are you aware?
Yeah.
Not just of this, but of the very fact that we are here, that we can breathe, that we can live, that we can climb mountains, we can jump from planes, we can swim to the depths or fly to the heights.
Yeah.
Life is fucking amazing, but we all get so lost in this bullshit because of the little black boxes we hold and the social confines of the infrastructure around us. So again, this is another reason why I'm so driven to create this platform, to try and find the others in all fields, from all walks of life, from all creed, from all color, from all gender, and all sexual orientations, religious beliefs, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. If you're a person who genuinely opens your heart and your mind and wants to engage in meaningful conversations that in some small way can help at least me and them grow, me, you and them grow, and our audience learn something and feel more connected, then fuck, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we?
That's a. Do you know what? I had like 10 or different, 10 or 15 different thoughts, and I was like, we could talk about all these, you know, and just keep going on it. But I think that's actually a fucking perfect summary of what this is all about. And you know, we should probably tease people a bit. You know, it can't be giving them like, an entirety of an episode. You know what I mean? This is supposed to be a teaser, not a full one. And we got into a bit of flow there. That was pretty good, I thought.
Well, yeah, we covered a wide diversity of subjects, and again, I think it gives the audience an opportunity to sort of get familiar with yourself, with myself, people that don't know already, and to see the sort of dynamic that we have, and hopefully have an idea of what it is that we're seeking to build with this project. As we've already stated, and I will reiterate, this is very ambitious. We're aware of that. We're aware that it's still quite rough around the edges, but we wanted to show you this. We didn't want to just try and work and find the money and build it. We wanted to bring you along on this journey with us across all of the platforms, through the website, across YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're really trying to build a presence to centralize all of this content so that as many people can be involved as possible to just create
so what's the
world, man.
What's the how can people follow this then on social media?
Everything, I think we've done very well here, is at the Simpa Life. So Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram are all at the Simpa Life. There's also at the Simpa Life podcast on Instagram, because myself and Mr. Wizard are having a disagreement about whether I should have a personal page and a podcast page.
Disagreement, a friendly one. I'm only
winding
up.
Very friendly.
I'm winding you up. No.
No, but so people can follow across there. Obviously, the website we've been working on quite tirelessly at this point. We are not far off. Obviously, neither of us are experts in this. Maca has his professional prowess and previous skill set that he's bringing to this. But ultimately, we have a passion. We have a certain base of knowledge between us, but we have drive and gusto, and we want to see something come of this. So please do follow us. Please do like, share, and introduce anybody and everybody you come to that may find this interesting and may be interested in following us. And yeah, I suppose all that's left to say is thanks, guys.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure. Always a pleasure, never a chore, as they say.